Would you like to hear the story of American Pie? I'll tell you all about it today. Very scary. It's the death of a nation. Okay.
You know, we do want to know the
Haunting.
story of American Pie.
Of course you do.
You know, first off, Don, thank you so much for joining us today. You mentioned American Pie. You've got a career that spans 5 decades, but I mean, this song, this is the kingpin. This is the song that's interwoven in the fabric of music.
Yes, the song was a phenomenon from the moment it came out. I remember that so well. I had come out with an album called Tapestry, which was wonderful. People loved it for the time, you know, had all these different songs that I wrote, Castles in the Air and I Love You So, later on became very famous songs. But the second one, the minute it came out, it was electric and people went nuts, and they've been asking me the same questions for 50 years. and I respectfully answer them because I know they don't really realize that I've been asked those questions that frequently. And I'm honored that I gave people something that they care enough about in their busy lives, you know, to even have an opinion on or want to know about. So it's all wonderful to me. But the thing about the song that has surprised me is how this thing comes back. I mean, I'm not kidding. 1997, Garth Brooks had me at Central Park. The song came back. The early 2000, American Pie was the #1 played song almost around the world. BMI, you know, was a huge BMI song. And I played at the White House, and Madonna recorded the song with that hot video she did with those lowrider blue jeans, that sexy little devil.
Yeah,
She's always thinking of something. And now, look at that. You know, here we are in the middle of a pandemic, and these young boys who have this harmony group do an a cappella version of it. And it's just gone batshit. I mean, it's everywhere. I can't believe it.
First of all, you can't forget John Mayer's version too.
John Mayer and John Bon Jovi and people have been doing. I mean, they. You know what? I always thought Garth should have gone in the studio, done the whole song, and made the definitive Americana video. Because Garth, you know, is the bull of the woods. You know, and he sings the song every night. God bless him. He's been such a great friend to me. And he's such a success. And I just love the guy.
Don, what exactly was it about this a cappella group that you decided to re-record the song?
You know, I'm out of it. You know, I'm an old man. You know, I do my stuff. I make my records. I'm busy with all sorts of stuff. And occasionally an opportunity comes along and somebody who I hear, because I don't have any of their records or anything, that they're very popular and that some people are doing a cappella. I don't know anything about what young people are doing.
Oh, come on, sure you do.
It's not my thing. It's not my business. You know, I had my day.
You wrote the Book of Love, man. Come on.
I wrote the book. That I know about. But so I said, okay, let's do it. And they came up with this really good track and everything. I love the track. And they asked me to sing on the front and the back or the middle. I sang the whole thing. And they added each one of them took a verse, kind of trying to sound like I sound on the original, but not overdoing it. And it turned out very well. And then they came out to California, where I have this house out here in the desert. And they put me in front of a green screen, and I did my part, and they added it into the video. So, you know, it wasn't hard. And my God, though, they did such a great job. I'm amazed and happy and wonderful to get the song out in this way, because they're the only people that ever did the whole song all the way through. You know,
So
Garth
does
does
it
a part
surprise you?
version.
Does it surprise you that you're hearing that song manifested in so many different ways over the years by different people? Like it just keeps coming up differently all the time. That song, and did this particular version is special because it's a cappella?
Well, also they have a young fan base, and all of popular music. It's always about young people and what they're turned on by.
Yeah.
So, fortunately for me, they love this version of the song by the group. They see it as a step up and forward for them, and I think it is. It's going to be a classic version, but also they don't mind me too much. They say I sound pretty good, and they're happy I'm with them. So the chemistry works very well.
Mr. McLean, we Ben and I, we're music junkies, and we were having this conversation before. Why we think American Pie transcends is because in its true art form, it is a folk song, but at the same time, it's anthemic, and that's why it resonates.
It was a phenomenon, and I have no idea why it was a phenomenon. I still don't know why. I think part of it has to do with, just so many factors. I really don't know. Ed Freeman made a great record. He's a very smart man and a very good producer. And we worked and worked and worked on that album. We were always rehearsing it and tweaking it. You don't have no idea the arguments that I had about everything. I did not like the way the players were playing it. It was sounded like a polka. It was awful. And then this guy, Ed, brings in this piano player, Paul Griffin, and he sits down, and they put his headphones on, my guitar blasting away. I rock and roll. I play the guitar hard, and he starts pounding that thing because he gets it from me. And after we came together, and he said, "Man, when I heard that guitar in my ears, I just had to play this. I knew what I had to play." So all the other guys followed right in the groove, but they didn't really know what the groove was until he came into the studio.
So who did you say that was on the piano? Garth?
Paul Griffin.
Paul Griffin. Yeah. I was going to say, almost reminded me of Garth Hudson from the band, the way he plays that sort of jangly piano.
Garth was a character. He doesn't really play any particular way, and he can play a lot of different ways, I guess. But he did a lot of things. He played piano. I had him on the road with me. He played piano. He played accordion. He was a character. He was really good at production too. He knew how to produce things, so he would get a lot of sounds going and things like that. He is equivalent in a way, and if I may say so, to who's the guy that died that was in the Stones, drowned? He was
Brian Jones.
Brian Jones. Yeah, Brian Jones was like that. A little of this, a little of that here. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, the Stones were never as good without Brian Jones. Ever.
Yeah, he kind of just added that extra texture.
He knew all this weird stuff. He had weird things in his head. He's formed a group. That was his group. He chose all those people. And so Garth is like that. You could see him working on their head down, things were happening.
Yeah, Brian Jones was always hanging around other people's studios in his spare time. Like I heard a story where he was hanging out with Jimi Hendrix and hanging out with the Beatles, playing saxophone with the Beatles, and just always around the studios.
I saw that group in 1964 at the Brooklyn Academy of Music when the Stones first came over. I saw them with Brian Jones. And what I remember was that the guitars were kind of going like that. They were like interweaving, like snaking. And Mick is in the middle doing the snake dance, and singing these hits. And they've basically done so much of the great stuff already. Painted Black, Get Off My Cloud, Satisfaction, to so many. And that was a hell of a show. I remember that well. I've seen a lot of people in my life, because even when I was unknown, I always made sure I got places where something was going on. I was at Shea Stadium. I saw the Beatles.
Really?
64?
Wow.
65.
65.
Mm-hmm.
When I hear your music, Don, I hear a lot of different things. I was listening to a couple of your albums the other day, and I was hearing Elvis. I was hearing Guthrie, even the Beatles. The Beatles did a lot of eclectic stuff, but your songs, even though a lot of people see them as folk in some aspects, they are very eclectic. They are very different from each other. so like everyone knows American Pie. We've been talking about it,
Yeah.
but Vincent can make you cry, and
Yeah.
it's a very different song.
Well, I love the Beatles, and the Beatles were perfect.
Yeah.
Everything they did was different, and it all had a logic to it, and the records were perfect and inspired at the same time, and they
Mm.
were such a gift to the world and to the world of music and to the world in general. The Stones are fantastic, and Dylan is fantastic, all those great big ones, but the Beatles were a musical perfection, and they never repeated themselves. There was always new stuff,
Yeah.
and that turned me on. And I love all their records, but I especially like the Beatles '65. I don't know why. I loved "I Feel Fine" and some of those songs. Uh, I'll Be Back. Those things with the big guitars and everything. And so what I wanted to do, they challenged me in a way to write different things and follow my mind wherever I wanted to go, whether it was Dreidel or Bronco Bill's Lament or Castles in the Air or whatever. Just do it, do it.
Yeah.
Don't be
Did you
afraid.
ever get
Just
to meet any of the Beatles?
the what?
Did you ever get to meet any of the Beatles? Or
No,
Paul
I never
McCartney
did.
or-
Never met them. I admire Paul McCartney. I think he's a wonderful little creative person, and he just keeps creating things. He's got that wonderful well of creativity. I'm very turned on lately by Ringo and his drumming. I've been seeing some things on YouTube where he talks about the things that he does. He is a super loose
Yeah.
guy, and the tricky things. He was showing some of the things like Paperback Writer and
Yeah.
Ticket to Ride, and people always used to think Ringo was, okay, he's Ringo. He's a hell of a bass player, of a drummer. I'm telling you, he really is.
Oh yeah, he's a percussive drummer. Like
He's fantastic.
even really great drummers can't they usually have their chops, but Ringo does these syncopations that are very spontaneous, and they're percussive spontaneous.
And they work so well with
very
Paul
very hard
McCartney.
to replicate. Very hard to
Yeah, I
replicate.
would think so. It's very personal, and so is Paul's bass playing.
Yeah.
Magnificent bass player. Those lines, you can follow them with every single one. It's like lead bass, but it all makes sense. It doesn't get in the way of anything. It all
It's all
makes
over.
sense.
It's all over the fretboard, but it seems to just work perfectly.
I think that Paul McCartney is the real musician in the group. He's the guy that knows the voicings and all the nuts and bolts of music. I think probably the second person would have been Ringo because of working with him, and then George, is a great guitar player, boy. Because you know why? Because you can always remember every note of every solo George ever played on any Beatles record. And what is more proof of how great you are if that's the case? Because there's a hell of a lot of notes.
Yeah.
And Lennon, I think, played really good acoustic guitar, okay electric guitar, but he had a lot of edge and a lot of ideas that would push the sweetness of McCartney, and the two together and the whole group together. I mean, just it's an organic
It's a phenomenon, isn't it? It's a
It
phenomenon.
really
they
is,
all
and it's an
form.
organic group. They grew up around each other, and Liverpool is so musical. I remember going there the first time and hearing a fish woman singing out, I've got fresh fish. And there's folk music and music in the air in Liverpool. It really, people don't know what Liverpool means. You know what it means? There's the grass that grows in the. I had to ask this question. I'm always asking questions. I said, why do they call it that? And they said because the grass that grows in the port, it's one of the deepest ports in England. That's why so many ships would come in, and there was tall grass. It was called liver, so it's really Liverpool.
Liverpool. Eh?
Yeah.
Right. We just lost Jerry Marsden recently. Ferry crossed the Mersey.
I saw that. I was sad about that. He was one of all those gang that came over and made those good songs, and we were really happy in America to hear that music because we'd had that Kennedy assassination, you know, and we were in need of a big change.
So, Don, you came out with Tapestry. I guess you recorded it in 69, came out with it in 70. At this same time, the Beatles are coming out with, Abbey Road, Let It Be. For you, you grew up listening to the Beatles, but was there a point where you saw the Beatles as more of a challenge than as a fan, or were you always just in that fan set mode?
No, I wasn't a fan really. I was in awe of their musical ability. I wouldn't fan isn't good enough, you know. I was just absorbing and listening very carefully with the ears of an artist, the ears of a recording artist. And even though I was, growing into it, that's who I was. I was finding this out as I was moving along through my life. So I was remembering because I was always glued to the speaker. You know, I wanted to climb in the speaker, when I was a little boy and be in the song, like Pleasantville, I wanted to jump in the record. And that's what got me started. I wanted to, later on, I realized I just had a passion for wanting to make records and just like they did. But listening to them was, it was a drug trip on its own. It really was because the things that were going on. And I'll tell you what, there's quite a lot of misogynist thinking, I think, in some of John Lennon's songs, Run for Your Life and songs like this.
It's a great song, though, isn't it? It's a very catchy track.
Fantastic song.
There's
I can see why you like the Beatles, because your music is carries a lot of melody in your writing also, Don. And I can kind of see that they're very melodic as well.
I love, there are fake melodies and there are real melodies. And the thing I love about the great pop songs, the song like The Way You Look Tonight, or they're real melodies, then you have a lot of stuff that's around now that's sort of blather. It's trying to be a melody, but it really isn't, because it's
They almost don't know how to do it or something.
And so I have this ability. It's probably the Italian in me because I'm half Italian. And Pete Seeger once told me, he said, your mother comes from Abruzzi, which is where all the beautiful Italian melodies come from, and your father comes from the Isle of Iona in the Hebrides, and that's where the Scottish poets came from. And so he saw me as some sort of a genetic concoction, I suppose, as to why I did what I did. But I think of beautiful melodies all the time. I almost think of symphonic things.
Wow. Don, that's amazing. Before we let you go, I gotta settle something with you. There's an internet conspiracy, a few of them out there, but one in particular surrounding American Pie. And while Lenin read a book of Marx, a quartet practiced in the park. You know where I'm going with this?
No.
Okay. There's a couple conspiracies out there that you're actually referring to the Beatles in those lines where you pronounce.
I never talk about the song.
Never, huh?
No.
The quartet practicing in the park, that's not Candlestick Park, a reference to the final concert, another reference to the day the music died.
I never talk about it.
Buddy Holly.
There are lots of parks and lots of quartets.
Yeah. That is fantastic. Is there anything else you want to add before we go?
Oh, I'm just glad that I've contributed some music. All my music is on this website, Don McLean's YouTube channel, and I'm really happy to be a part of the healing process that I think needs to be going on while we're getting through this dreadful year of not knowing what the future holds. And I think music is a very medicinal thing, that young people can cling to and give them. We have to get the happiness out of our days. There's so much worry from parents and young people and college students. Where am I going to go? You got to, I think, each day put it to the side and you go with your music or your movie, whatever you want to see. Get yourself happy. You're alive. You've got a future. It's all going to work out. We're going to get out of this thing. And I'm just glad to have songs, and especially now to have this American Pie song come out like this with this young group, and people can get into it and make them feel good.
Oh, it certainly put a smile on my face.
I'm
Don,
glad. I
Don,
couldn't be happier.
we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.